Today was day 16 of TMS, or transcranial magnetic stimulation treatment, a therapy for depression and anxiety. But before I go into my usual video about talking about how the treatment went and how it felt, I wanted to touch on a couple of other things. And I just want to start by saying that I have come to the realization that I am not made to work 9 to 5. I cannot work a full-time 9 to 5 job for the rest of my life. I think partly because I'm very introverted, but also because I deal with all these mental health issues. The major depressive disorder, generalized anxiety disorder, ADHD, and then physically I have cerebral palsy. So it's exhausting for me to have to interact with people on a daily basis. And I don't know if that sounds ridiculous, but I just need my days where I can, like, I can't work full time for the rest of my life. And I work as a speech therapist for 2 different schools, and a school job as a teacher or a speech therapist, I think is probably the closest you're gonna get to feeling some sort of freedom within the workplace, because I'm out of there by 4, right? Other schools, like other districts, I know they're out of there by 2:30 or 3. But my district that I work for, I have to work from 7:30 to 4. But even, like, being done with my day by 4, it's not so bad, right? And plus we get like summer breaks. I get like a month and a half off for summer breaks, but in between that I get a bunch of breaks. Like I get 2 weeks off for Christmas. I get a random week off in October for fall break. I get a whole week off for Thanksgiving in November. And then I get like all the federal holidays off, plenty of like long weekends. And even then, I don't feel like it's enough to really decompress um, and be okay mentally. Like mentally and emotionally, I'm exhausted by the end of the day, and it feels like all of these mini vacations or days off are barely enough to still just keep me hanging on by a thread. Now, but also keeping in mind, I think, like teaching in general, I'm not a teacher, I'm a speech therapist, but I work with kids all day long, and I think that any profession that like works with children, or any profession really that's like that, where you're going to work in a school and you have all these expectations placed upon you, and you have to meet like the administrators' expectations, but also the parents' expectations. I constantly have IEP meetings that I have to attend, where I have to meet with the parents and the principal and whoever else is on that child's IEP team. And this is like several meetings on a weekly basis sometimes, on top of actually having to like do therapy, right? Have the therapy sessions with the kids and keep data and make sure that they're making progress, and constantly being in communication with like not only the parents, but like the school psychologist, their teacher, collaborating with like the rest of the team. And it's a lot, on top of like these really long, like 10 to 16 page reports that I have to write every time that I assess a child for speech and language services. And I don't know if I just could just keep going like this. And I guess that's why they call it a rat race, right? Because you just have to keep going and going and going. And yeah, the paycheck and the salary is nice, but at what cost? Because I don't have, like, I get out at 4. And granted, I'm in graduate school, so that I have other things going on. But I still, I feel like even if I wasn't in school, I wouldn't have the mental capacity or energy to really live any sort of life outside of work, just because I'm so drained by the end of the day that I just want to crash and then wake up the next day to do it all over again. And it's exhausting to live this way. And I think this is why I cannot wait I still have 2 years to go before I complete my master's degree for speech and language pathology. But I can't wait to get it because then it'll come with a lot more freedom. I can choose whether I want to work at a school in person or teletherapy. Teletherapy is an option now. I can choose to be a speech therapist from the comfort of my own home, and I can choose to work part time. So I can even choose to work 4 hours, 5 hours, 6 hours, as opposed to the like eight and a half hour day that I'm doing now. Or I can choose to maybe start my own clinic, a speech therapy clinic, and then set my own hours there. I feel like it's just going to come with so much more freedom. I have to do something because like I said, even with the summer breaks and everything, I don't want to sound ungrateful, but it's just not enough for me to decompress and be mentally and physically and emotionally okay, um, after dealing with all the stresses of the job. And I don't know if life is meant to be lived this way. Um, I'm not complaining about the money. And even the special ed department and the schools that I've worked with, they've been very supportive. I just don't feel like a 9 to 5 is the right fit for me. Can't, I don't see it working out in the long run. Anyway, so yeah, that was my whole spiel about trying to or wanting to escape the rat race. Um, so yeah, today was day 16 of TMS treatment. They did the bilateral stimulation again for depression and anxiety. I'm not sure how far they got up to. As far as intensity, it's probably 115 on both sides again. Didn't feel any pain. Didn't have a headache this time. Still feeling some of that fatigue. Um, Overall, I think when I compare the side effects of TMS so far to the side effects of some like medication and antidepressants that I've gone on that have made me feel terrible, the side effects of TMS, at least for me, are very minimal so far. But I haven't really felt any real benefits yet. But again, I've heard that the effect of TMS is cumulative, much like medication. For a lot of these SSRIs or antidepressants that I've tried in the past, you gotta wait a month and sometimes longer than that for before you start feeling the effects of uh, the medication. And so it's similar with TMS. The provider said sometimes people don't feel the effects until about midway through treatment. Most people feel it like, toward the end of treatment. Some people start feeling it like even a couple weeks after treatment. So I guess it's different for everyone. I want to say I'm almost halfway through the treatment. I was told I was approved for a total of 38 sessions. I'm paying $30 out of pocket per session, which isn't bad considering how expensive the treatment is. Uh, my insurance actually covers the majority of the cost. Um, but yeah, as far as like rating my anxiety and my depression, because they ask me to rate my anxiety and depression on a scale from 1 to 10 every time I go to treatment. I told them that my depression was at a 5, whereas my anxiety was at about a 7 or 8. Well, I said depression between 5 and 6, anxiety between 7 and 8. Today was pretty stressful at work. I started working with a student who is minimally verbal, and she's little. She's like in kinder. She does come. She entered the school with some behaviors like pushing and biting and like screaming. And today I basically spent the entire 30-minute session trying to get her to attend to the therapy tasks that I was trying to do with her. Of course, that plan went out the window. Sometimes it just goes that way. Nothing really goes as planned. But, she was like running because, like, the speech therapy room is pretty big. So she was running back and forth, trying to, like, avoid having to do the tasks that I was trying to have her do, the activity. And then she pushed me. She's a kindergarten, but she's pretty big and heavy. So she pushed me. She was trying to bite me. Her ABA therapist was in the session with me too, and she was trying to help her regulate a little bit. But even with her in the room, it was tough. And so I felt like I had an audience because her therapist was there, her ABA therapist, my supervisor, who's the other SLP, and the speech therapist assistant. They were all there, and I feel like they were just kind of watching me fail miserably at trying to uh, get the session under control, which never ended up happening. And eventually, I just had to take her back to class, right? Um, but again, that's probably one of those cognitive distortions. Um, my supervisor, after I dropped the kiddo off in class, I came back into the speech room and I said, that did not go well. And she said, no, but it's a learning experience. That's how you learn. This didn't go well. Next time I'll try something else. And she gave me some pointers. She said, you want to minimize distractions, remove anything from the environment that you don't want her to grab or use, have maybe 2 or 3 activities out ready for her, let her choose, and it has to be very play based. So your session's pretty much going to just look like you playing with her while she does her preferred activity, whatever that is, and you're going to work on that and see how you can incorporate language to that, which is what I'm going to try next time. So, like I said, overall, I think my supervisors are pretty supportive. Um, I just still, it's tough for me to have to constantly be interacting with people. The TMS treatment wasn't so bad, it was bearable, it wasn't painful, it was slightly uncomfortable. Um, Afterwards, I did feel tired, so that fatigue I think is pretty ongoing so far. What else did I do today? I had an appointment with my therapist at like 6:20 in the morning because that's the only time I actually have time to see her. It was a 45-minute session, and as usual, she asks me, "Is there anything so far this week or last week that is significant that you want to talk about?" And I just told her about how I was seeing a group of fifth graders for a speech therapy session, and one of the fifth graders asked me, "Why do you walk like that?" Right, because I have cerebral palsy and I walk with a limp. And I felt a rush of like adrenaline. I felt my face turning red. I could tell that I was blushing. It was almost like I entered fight or flight mode. And she said, "Yeah, we talked about it." And she said, "Yeah, that's a trauma response, right? PTSD that probably stems from you being bullied when you were younger because of the way that you walk." Because I did tell her that I was constantly mocked and bullied, especially throughout like middle school, because I walk with a limp, and I was always being like made fun of. And so we talked a little bit about that and about how that's that same trauma response that I had in the moment when I was being bullied when I was in middle school, um, and that is likely connected to a schema or a thought pattern or belief that I have about myself, that I feel like I'm broken, like I'm less than, like there's something wrong with me because of my disability, because of the way that I was treated much of the time growing up with a disability. And we did some breathing exercises, and she talked about some thought patterns that we could use to replace that like belief that I have about myself because of my disability. So that was helpful. Um, yeah, growing up with a physical disability can be tough. I dealt with a lot of bullying, and I think it really affected like my sense of identity. A lot of times I feel like people just feel sorry for me, like I'm less than because of the way that I walk, because of the cerebral palsy. Um, and and I feel like I have a lot of trauma responses, right? And I think that really adds to my depression and anxiety overall. Anyway, yeah, I think that's all I wanted to discuss today. I will be back tomorrow for day 17 of TMS therapy.